because I was just essentially very bored with myself and I needed to entertain. And that's now kind of transitioned, like my platform. I think I just hit 265,000 followers on TikTok. And now that I'm also posting on Instagram Reels, which co-posts on Facebook as well, which is convenient. I do have a YouTube because unlike maybe other people who are transitioning from long form content to short form, I'm now transitioning from short form and attempting to go into long form. But I did really want to include this tweet here because it is actually kind of about me. It was left under a screenshot of the comments under one of my videos that was posted to Twitter. And I think it really speaks to something that when I first started posting was unintentional, but has become a really central part of my practice. This idea of being normal about archaeology. What is normal? And I really kind of like this idea of kind of deconstructing what it means to be an academic, especially being a public forward-facing academic. I didn't intend to become a digital public archaeologist. I didn't even know what that was, but it's kind of what I've transitioned to. And so as part of my work, I feel like I have gone to, if you've ever seen any of my content, a very intense, extreme, far away from normal. And I think that that's okay. And I think it's something we should be encouraging people to feel comfortable to explore different emotions through archaeology and sort of use those skills. Because just because you're an academic doesn't mean you need to be dry, dusty, and boring, I think. You're allowed to have fun. So you might be wondering, like, aside from this, kind of what actually have I done online? Because it's one thing to post online, but another thing to actually create some kind of community, which I think I've done. So basically, I have developed this new form of digital public archaeology. I've been working sort of this idea, but I've sort of coined it this sad girl style, which, as the name suggests, involves me looking very sad in videos, which is amazing, so good for my self-esteem. And I'm sort of using it as a way to engage the public with archaeological research and ethical debates. Specifically, a lot of my content is around human remains. So that's why I'm thinking about human remains in museums. And that's sort of something I want to point on, that just because it's a TikTok video, just because it's something short form, just because it looks like it's not a lot of effort, doesn't mean that I don't have 5 years of experience of doing that and this knowledge that I have built on for myself. And it doesn't mean just because it's a short form video, and by short form, I mean 15 seconds or under, doesn't mean you can't have important debates, doesn't mean you, like, people in the public aren't interested. Because I remember when I first started posting, I was like, oh, archaeology is too niche. No one's gonna care. Who cares about this? No one's gonna be interested in this. Very famous last words, I will say. And it was in some ways really humbling for me to realize that no, there is absolutely an audience out there who wants to know what archaeologists are doing. And I also think it's a very effective way of fighting pseudo-archaeology. As a woman on the internet, or anyone who is maybe not a cis white male on the internet has possibly experienced, there are a lot of different communities you maybe don't want to directly call out. And because when I first started in 2019 on TikTok, it was only men, apologies to the men in the room, and racists on the internet. And sometimes that was one and the same, like on TikTok talking about archaeology. And so I was like, well, I'm not comfortable directly addressing any of these people because, well, I know exactly what I'm going to get, the death threats, the rape threats, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, if I am merely an archaeologist on the internet who's public facing and is being like, this is what archaeologists really do, it sort of takes away, I think, some of the meat of a lot of the argument, which could be, oh, archaeologists are hiding secrets. And I'm like, have you met any archaeologists? We will not shut up. You go and meet archaeologists after excavation to pub, and they will tell you everything that they've dug up in, as my sister will probably say, in far too much detail that no one actually cares about who isn't an archaeologist, possibly. And a secondary aim, which I didn't necessarily intend to happen, but humanizing archaeologists, it's shocking the amount of comments I get where people are like, whoa, archaeologists aren't just ripping treasure out of the ground and cackling with glee as they sell it for millions of pounds, like you guys do paperwork. And I'm like, yeah, archaeology is all paperwork. It's people are like, oh, what's it like? What's a day-to-day of an archaeologist? I'm like, well, when I worked in the field, I get up, I dig a hole, I then describe the dirt in way too much detail, and then I would wash some pottery. And people are like, oh, that isn't as interesting as maybe I thought it would be. But I think because I sometimes am shocked that I'm an archaeologist. I sit there or I'm like lying in bed, I'm going, wow, archaeology is a real job. It's a real career that you can do, and I've done. So I can only imagine what it's like for someone who has only seen Indiana Jones or Lara Croft to be like, this is a fake career. People aren't really archaeologists. And so I think showing that we are scientists, that it is actually work, has benefits. And so I will say this wasn't the original audio that was posted with this video, but because TikTok decided to delete audios, I had to stick another one on top of it. But yeah, basically, that's why sometimes the music and the clips don't sync up. But basically, kind of where it's good to begin at the beginning. And so, as I said, I sort of started creating content in November 2019. Now, in August of 2021, I had made the first video that called out the creator John's Bones, which I think he goes by a different app, I think, at this time, or he calls himself a museum now, for selling an indigenous Sami skull on TikTok. Well, I mean, he was selling in like bones and advertising it on TikTok, and I found a Sami skull that was tagged Laplander on it, and I was like, oh, buddy, I was like, this isn't great. And so if you were around on Twitter at the time when everyone was talking about that, I made the first video. And for me, that was a personal turning point, because before then, I'd had videos get popular. I think I maybe had hit 1 million views on a video, but it'd all been very small on TikTok. It had just been general conversations. And this was the first time when it kind of went big, like left the little TikTok area where I was existing. And I mean, it eventually resulted in the publication of a paper called When TikTok Discovered the Human Remains Trade. It doesn't mention me, but it's all about me. No, I'm not bitter about it. What makes you think that? And then this video, which I just showed you, I look miserable in it, as you can tell. And I am miserable because I'd had to take a train all the way from Durham to Exeter the day before. It had been delayed. We had to get on another train. I'd had to stand up for 3 hours. It was hellish. So yes, I am actually genuinely miserable. And of course, it's England. It was wet. And I'm just in Exeter Cathedral. And I saw this graffiti. And I was like, oh, wow, that is so cool, because it's not modern graffiti. It is old graffiti, but when the people from like 1600 were putting in their graffiti, like this was already like an old feature, an old tomb. Like there is this long history here. And I was like, oh, this would make a funny TikTok. Why not? Within an hour, it was at 1 million views. It eventually got to the 7.9 million views is where it sat. And it has been my biggest viewed video on TikTok for a long time. I think only one video recently got to 8 million, but like it was huge. It blew up. It was creepy because it was happening while I was in the cathedral. I was getting the notifications and it was a bit overwhelming. But I would say this is the first video that was in this sad girl style. Like, look at me. I am, as I say, fucking miserable. I look miserable. So yeah. And then if anything goes viral on social media, you want to chase that really, like, okay, what worked here? Let's see what happens. And eventually, like I did the original audio that I used, I made some other videos in the same style. And this eventually, if you guys ever, I can't remember when I first posted the first video, but I think it was like in early-ish 2022 is when I posted about what would become the ancestors trend. So I'd read an article about how in Portugal, Neanderthals were eating crabs in caves. And I was really wanting to try and find a way to use TikTok to talk about archaeological research. And I was like, oh, okay, I will film a little video. And it eventually, the trend went far beyond archaeology. It had Drew Barrymore doing the trend, and Reese Witherspoon as well, which was kind of like, oh, wow, felt very nice. So I want to be clear, like, it's not like, oh, I posted my first video, went instantly viral, and I've been viral ever since. Like, there are certainly very distinct phases where I now, finally, at this point, I think I have a very basic formula for my style of videos that I've kind of developed. And this is an example of the style. This is, yeah. No, it's not playing that one. Let's see. No, it's not playing that one. Well, anyway. My example video is not playing, but it's a lot more recent. It's from August, and it follows the same formula with, as you see, some of my videos I'm crying. This one I'm not crying, I just look miserable. And it's about a headstone where from ancient Rome, parents had put that their daughter had been thrown into the Tiber by her husband. She had been murdered at the age of 16. And they're very clear in that. And so a lot of the topic videos is I have a sad topic that is part of it. That's kind of the main theme.
Let me just try.
That's not, if it works.
Okay.
That's right. And I sort of start with this text overlay, and I think maybe it didn't save when I did the video. No, it's all right. It's fine. And I do want to say I am intentional with the text here. Again, this is something that has happened with practice. Like you learn what words are going to create more engagement. So often I find putting a date, like even it's like 2000 years ago, 2400 years ago, but that having a date in like the first few words can help. But something like this, what I did is it's doing like what people might have as like a stereotype. So, oh, parents in the past didn't care about their children. And then when the music, I'm not a music person. If anyone's a music person, I'm sorry, I'm about to offend you deeply. But whenever in the music, there's like a key change, or there's a shift in the music, or maybe it goes from instrumental to singing, or singing to instrumental, whatever, that's when I'll time the transition for my clip. And then the second text will be related to it. So it's, if I remember it right, it's something like, oh, like the parents wrote this, you know, they recorded this, and the clip is related. The second one is related to the topic I'm talking about. And so in this case, it was a beautiful view of the Tiber River, which, yes, when I went to EAA, I did run across Rome just specifically so I could film this video, because I was like, oh, I have such a brilliant idea. I'm going to do it. And I really wanted to. So it was kind of fun. And I did that. But I would say this is probably the most basic style of video that I've created. The very simple 2 clips, my face, something related. But again, this has been 5 years of practice. And I will say, I don't get it right all the time. Like I posted a recent video, it's only got like 7,000 views. And that's the thing with social media. You can try as hard as you want, and it does love patterns and niches, especially TikTok. Like that's what I want to say. Social media platforms are all very different. And I find even though I create all my content on TikTok, and TikTok is where I've developed this niche and this pattern, my content does do better on Instagram Reels and Facebook. Like if you consider like growth, Facebook, it's been the fastest for growth, which is odd because I'm never on Facebook, but yeah, it's an interesting way. So if you ever want to go on social media, I think it's important to recognize the pros and cons of the different platforms and the different way they'll interact. Like as I say here, I can't put hashtag women's history in a video. It'll tank the video. I put the word indigenous. So I made a couple of follow-up videos about the Sami skulls because I had a lot of Sami people getting in contact with me, which I didn't expect. And I literally had people in my comments being like, hey, thank you so much for talking about this. We had a fight to get my grandma's skull back from a museum. And I was like, this was a lot deeper than what I thought was a silly little TikTok video. So as I will say, this whole thing has been incredibly humbling for me, and I have grown and learnt so much from this. But if I say Sami, fine. I say indigenous Sami, or so yeah, it's weird. TikTok is a very odd platform. But yeah, that's kind of the most basic style of the formula.
Mariana Cross.
I don't care that the song is about oral sex. It sounds sad and it works and it creates engagement. People go, oh my God, you're using a song about oral sex. I'm like, what? I didn't know that. Huh? Shockingly generates people talking, but I will say it is a very good audio and it goes viral, I will say. So this was actually the first one for this series that I decided to develop. This has been something, I don't want you to think like, oh, it's just a silly little TikTok video. You make these silly little videos about random subjects. Like, no, you can have proper ethical debates. Now, you are limited by the platform, but it doesn't mean you can't have it. And as I say, I think it's a bit of a cop-out from things I've heard through grapevines. People say that like, oh, the public, they'll never understand. They don't understand what's going on. I'm like, that's so rude. That's like, what? Like, and like the public doesn't realize we're having these ethical debates. Like I've had people be like, oh wait, museums are discussing, there is conversation about the display of human remains. You're not all like, yeah, pro display human remains. Like it is a serious discussion happening. I'm like, well, absolutely. Like people are professionals. That's part of the professional, and people have different opinions. There's the, you know, this is a conversation that's happening. And I'm very firmly of the belief that what's the point of being an archaeologist if you're not going to engage with the public? And that's definitely something that I have now come to think about regarding my own research, especially being a white woman studying Arabia. There's, you know, I am constantly thinking about that. So creating this content has been of benefit to me. And I think that's the thing, is like, who is actually benefiting? Like, who are you doing? Because anyone can write that, you know, tombstone volume when you finish your PhD. Anyone can have it published and force, you know, the first year undergrads to buy. This is the recommended required reading for this. And it's like, you know, so expensive and you never use, but oh, you were the publisher, or your wife was the publisher or something. Like, whatever, that is easy to do. But can you, in less than 15 seconds, get people to recognize that the mummies that they see on display in museums were living, breathing, real people? Because I can do that. Maybe I can't write a tombstone volume book. Maybe that isn't my skill. But I think it really highlights the possibilities that, yes, it does seem quite simple. Of course, it's overdramatic. Of course, I'm not literally in the museum, but I think I look at the way that I engage with history, the way I've engaged with archaeology, and I do think it makes me a better academic. Like, I definitely went into this with a certain naivety. I was like, oh, I'll just post about stuff, post about this. And then there is certainly, and it's a debate I'm willing to have, and I welcome it, about even the ethics of me creating content around death in this way. Like, it is exploitative, absolutely, but I'm doing that intentionally because I'm waiting for the day someone makes that video and goes, hold up, hold up, hold up. She's built a whole platform about this, but she's doing the same thing because I want to be having those conversations. I want to open it up. And I think that there's certainly the possibilities. It made me a better academic. Like, I'll never forget the first time I posted about a burial of a mum and a baby, and it went viral with mums. And it like, and I'm not a parent in any way. And it felt like it was a space that I was weirdly invading. And even though they were in my comment section, I was like, actually, I need to step out of this, because there were so many people being like, I absolutely relate to the feeling of a mother burying their child. This is something I connect with, you know, anyone who'd lost a child. And I was like, wow, I was kind of posting like, oh, this is like an interesting burial. Isn't it fascinating? And then the public connected with it on a level that I didn't expect. And I was kind of like, oh, I might need to be thinking about what I'm doing a bit more, because this has got a much wider impact than necessarily what I, with my limited personal experiences, would be conscious of.
Mary, Mariana, Mariana Cross.
See my sad face? I'm very proud of it. I've worked, and I had to try and hold that because it was a longer clip that I've shortened. It was like for a minute. And it is, I will say, yes, it is awkward in your room alone, holding a book, staring like deeply into the camera with a sad face. You do kind of get to the end and you're like, okay, right, keep holding this. How much longer have I got? Okay. But this was an experiment for me because I was curious. So I was reached out by the publisher of this book to advertise it on social media. And I'd already started this Holy Mary series. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I know it enough, or if I can, because that's the thing with social media. Sometimes you can do exactly what you've done 20 times before and it absolutely crashes. But I was like, I wonder if I can use the same format. It's a little bit different. So the original series is, they're all like the same as the first one. It starts with like some human remains or a mummy or something on display in the museum, a clip from there, and then it goes to my face. This one's longer. I was holding the book and I went through quotes. And I do think I don't think this would have worked with a different book. I definitely think it worked because I really connected with this book. If you do anything with human bones, this isn't sponsored. I do actually recommend that you read Still Life with Bones. I thought it was beautifully written, and the quotes that were in there really made me rethink my relationship with how I've excavated people before. And I wish this had been available before I went on my first bioarch dig, because I think I wouldn't look back necessarily with as much cringe as perhaps I look at the way I thought about excavation at that point. So I don't want to say it's just solely the trend. It was definitely the book. It's on a topic my audience is very familiar with. But again, as I say, social media likes patterns. My audience is kind of about human remains. It's about human remains. It's something very modern, but also about archaeology and well, an anthropologist. And I do think the fact that I like the book, I think kind of helped it. And I mean, I did get a cheeky message from the public because this was for free. This was my own experiment. Because normally when I get sent a book, I'll just post it in my Instagram stories. Because like if you're not paying me, I'm not going to make a whole video for it. But I did it because it was an experiment for myself. And it did create a spike in the it did, which is if you've ever tried to sell anything online, if you ever speak to bookstagrammers, it's basically impossible. It's so difficult. You never go into social media to sell something. So the fact I did with this is a little bit my own little pat on the shoulder. It was like proving something to me. But I think it also shows the possibilities. Like if you know what you're doing with social media, if you know the right way, if you know your audience, if you've cultivated a platform, you can have ethical debates. And maybe when I write my own book, if I know I can sell someone else's book, does that mean I can sell my own writing? Possibly. But I also want to show that it's malleable. I'm not saying you need to have like one formula you follow exactly. Everything is a little bit of tweak, have a little fun. You don't want to get too stagnant, too boring in your content because social media hates it when you get bored. As I say, you should have fun. I will say this is kind of embarrassing for me showing these videos to you all. I will say it's a little bit like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's different when you post online because you don't actually see anyone interacting, and now I am. But yeah, this video was like a joke because at the time, this like chapel order was like people like making joke about sexual tension. I was like, ha ha ha. What if I pretend, because I get bored sometimes of just solely being sad. I want to evolve my own content because this is a creative outlet for me. And I'm like, oh, I want to like experiment a little bit. And they often don't work because TikTok really only likes it if I'm sad. I've tried speaking and creating more hates my voice, does not like me. Maybe I'm just a bad documentary-esque person. Maybe that's the issue. But I filmed this as a joke. This is actually, I think, the second one I made. But yeah, 3.5 million views later of people staring at me with what I intended to be sexual tension. But people kind of took it in a different way, and it was interesting to see people interpret my video in a way I didn't intend. This was meant to be a ha he he joke. You know, archaeologists are so obsessed with ruins. Archaeologists can't tear them away. And sort of using that same formula of a clip of my face and clip of something relevant in that way. And then I had people being like, oh no, what she means is even if she was to step through the doorway, she'll never be able to step through the doorway as it was 2,400 years ago in Athens. She'll never be able to see the temple in its true glory. And I was like, well, damn, I mean, you're not wrong, but that was like, that just, oh, okay, I'm gonna take 5, I need to walk outside, you know, that I was like, oh, like, I mean, yes. So it's been kind of interesting to sort of see the platform and my channel evolve in ways and see the ways people choose to interact and interpret. And as I say, interpret it in sometimes more poignant ways and in a deeper extent than my haha way I originally intended. Because what I was more aiming for was to, and this is something I've done with my platform, deconstructing the idea of being a professional. Did I kind of panic when I only my bachelor's and I was in commercial archaeology? Like, damn, what are my peers going to think of me filming myself crying online? That is like, oh, I didn't want to talk to any archaeologists. It's actually taken me a long time to even talk to other archaeologists about what I'm doing. Because I'm like, oh God, what if they all hate me? And they're like, she's so stupid. What's she doing crying? But in some ways, that's what I want to do. I want to deconstruct what it is to be a professional, what it is to be a female academic online. I was very intentional when I started out that I would not make any effort. So while my sister's here, I am getting her to archive my videos because I've not deleted anything in 5 years. Yes, you can go right back to don't do it, but you could, don't. And see the terrible cringe that makes me go, oh. But you have this, like,
I don't see anything to connect.
videos
Check the device you'd like to use and make sure Bluetooth is turned on.
of the youth
Set up a new device.
living in. That's all my early, because I was earning that little money. I couldn't afford to rent in Oxford, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, that's because I was cold and it was warm, and there was no women there over winter, so I had it to myself, and I'd spend hours in the bathroom just filming myself because it was to entertain me. but I never, like, there's a couple times I've experimented with makeup. A bunch of us did an experiment to see if we expose more cleavage, if it would up the views. And actually, no. I received the most sexual comments when I've worn this. I had one where like the text was covering here, and I had some guy be like, ooh, ba ba ba. And I'm like, dude, it's like, it's covered. What are you talking about? But yeah, I felt like for me, I was like, I wanted people to be interested in my content and follow me as much as possible for me. Now I'm trying to be a little bit more professional because I'm like, oop, it's got bigger. Oop, I'm speaking at conferences. Oop, I'm talking in front of you all. And maybe I need to look a little bit more polished and not like I've been pulled through a hedge backwards. Because yeah, there was a period where I wouldn't even brush my hair for it. So I was like, no, we're really rejecting the idea of a female academic. Yeah, well, I don't know who knows if that worked, but yeah. But I think the big thing is you can have fun. You can create a channel, you can create a platform. There's often talks about social media about authenticity and if you can be truly authentic. And it's a balancing act, definitely. And it also depends how much you want to expose yourself. Because if you are public facing, which this was never meant to be a thing, guys. It was meant to be my silly little videos that 2 people would see, if that I posted solely for myself. But eventually, and I've really fought against the idea of it being academic, like really kicking and screaming. I've been pulled here because I never wanted to be a professional. I never wanted to be seen as a spokesperson, as the final source on something. I would want people to see my videos and be inspired to go on and do their own research, which has happened. I was very comforted when I asked for feedback from people and they were like, oh no, like I've gone and done further research. And I was like, yes, that's what I wanted. But to be an academic, you don't have to be serious. You can have fun, genuinely have fun, whatever that means for you. And this is where kind of leading to the idea of being authentic.
That's just the way life goes. I push my luck.
It's probably better on the phone to say this, I will say, which is a subtle plug that you should definitely follow me after this. But so I was in the Tirana Archaeology Museum, which are in Tirana. I definitely recommend. It's very cute, and they will give you a discount if you're an archaeologist, which was very nice of them. But I was going around, and this was actually an authentic moment that I decided to recreate for TikTok. Again, completely different style of video, like nothing like in any of the similar ways. So it doesn't have to follow that same formula. But because at the root of my content is connecting emotionally, because that's how I connect to the past. I connect emotionally. So I did this, like, because I don't know about you, but I've never seen like a Roman mirror that's been cleaned enough that you can actually see your own reflection. So I saw it and it was just out of my eye level. And I was like, oh, if I just stand up, like, can I see myself? And I'm one of those weirdos that I just wave at myself in a mirror is what I did. So I waved and then I kind of was like, oh, like who was the last the last person before it got buried and was eventually discovered to look at that mirror. And then I went, that'll make a great TikTok video, wouldn't it? And it did make a good TikTok video. But I think that's the thing for me, because everything I'm doing, like I learned about history like through stories. I was homeschooled, well, maybe my siblings were. And so that's why I put in Nebuchadnezzar, come and eat your porridge, because that's something my mum said. So she would read us like these world history books going through stories, and she would like make jokes. She'd be like, ha ha ha, Nebuchadnezzar, come eat your porridge. So that's something that really stayed with me in a way that I didn't realize at the time at 7 years old. Because but at 7, I was imagining, like, you know, you have these massive historical figures. I was imagining Nebuchadnezzar as a little boy, because my mom made a lot of porridge and now I hate eating it. But that was something I knew. I was a child that ate porridge, and I was like, oh, here is someone who, okay, maybe he didn't literally eat porridge, but he would have eaten breakfast. He would have been at one point a little 7-year-old boy running around who had to be called to eat breakfast. And it's one of those things, like, on reflection, looking back on something I didn't really intend to become, like, there's so many threads in my own life. And yes, the content I create is an exaggeration. I feel like now is the opportunity to say I'm not literally crying everywhere. I have had people come up to me and go like, are you okay? I only see you crying, like crying online. I'm like, so I refilm those clips. Sometimes I like rub my eyes a little bit, you know, I'll get the nose so it goes red. Like, I'm not always crying, but I am someone who has always got emotional. Maybe that's linked to the ADHD. And so for me, I always felt that it was a juxtaposition. Like, I couldn't be emotional if I was an academic. Like, being an academic, it's very serious. You know, you was very scientific as an archaeologist. You're looking, you know, at the soil and context. But for myself, for my own benefit, I wanted to give the space for me to feel those emotions and to recognize that emotions aren't bad. And I think it makes me a better archaeologist, you know, to sort of think about people's lived experience. Like, yes, you can practically describe, you can say, but then I do think that there's a very useful element of archaeological research to consider. But how did people interact here? How did people functionally use something? What did it mean? Did it mean something else? And of course, we'll never know. I'll never be able to travel back in time and ask them. And there is certainly conversations to be had about us putting our own emotions onto objects in the past. And like, just because I do a lot about bones, just because parents felt grief in the past, it doesn't mean it's the same grief that we would feel today for a dead child, which is something I want to start incorporating into my archaeological content. I'm not quite sure how to have that conversation yet, but it is something I want to sort of, now I've really established this kind of, people in the past did feel sad when their kids died. I now want to add in that level of nuance. We'll see how successful that is or if I'm able to do it, but I want to be constantly expanding. But there is this authenticity. Of course, it's an exaggeration, but it's not inauthentic to who I am. And it has been like, I received a comment from someone that went, hey, I just want to say I really appreciate your content because I went on an excavation where we were excavating some burials and no one else seemed to be getting upset, but they got so emotional that they did have to take some time out. They had to go to the side. You know, it hit them in a way they didn't expect. And that was actually something I was concerned because I'd never interacted with human bones or human remains in any way before I decided to go on field work. And I even had the thoughts like, oh shit, like what's going to happen the first time I see human bones? Like, I didn't freak out. I thought, oh wow, this is so cool. But there was an element of, what if I'm like, I can't do this and I just spend all this money? And so for the person to be like, hey, it's nice to kind of see your content that's like, it's okay to feel something. It doesn't mean you're not a scientist. It doesn't mean I can't be scientific. I mean, I can't, when I went to Oman, I created some content about the child I excavated there. Like, sure, at the time I wasn't hysterically sobbing as I was excavating, but I definitely took self-reflection when I came back, and I did create a video about that self-reflection when I had the moment. Was like, damn, like the last person to put that child in the ground was possibly someone who loved them, and then I'm the person to take him out. Like, we are linked. And I think that's something as archaeologists maybe isn't talked about enough, is the fact I'm very firmly the belief that you interact with archaeology, you're the first person to see something, you pull it out of the ground, you are now forever linked to that person, plus you're part of that object's story, which yes, includes the past, but it now includes you, and we have a duty to respect that story and continue to amplify it. And I don't think that's unscientific or means I'm a bad academic, even though I did have a comment saying, oh, do you think social media exempts you from the rigors of academia? And I went, yep. Ironically, that was on a video where I did actually reference, because I will say, you know, I'm very bad at referencing, but I do try, if it's about a published article, I will reference the article, but I am bad at putting on stuff. Is that intentional because it creates engagement with people asking about it? Maybe. So yes, and now don't walk away from this thinking, oh my God, Stephanie's saying she's bigger than Time Team. But I just want to give you an idea of the audience, because I was talking to some other people when I was at EAA, and they were like, oh, like they've had lectures kind of make the comment that more people are seeing their content than will have, even though they're an expert in their niche and they've published extensively, that, you know, they're not a nobody, but no, like in comparison. And so this is September. It's just got over 15 million. I will say September was an month. It was all right. It wasn't like, oh wow, I made out a series and like 20 videos went viral, which has happened. It was healthy across platforms. So basically this is the population of Istanbul. Watch my content for comparison. And I have included Time Team in there because I think as well, when we talk about public engagement, there's, you know, obviously there are still archaeology TV shows. They're amazing. I love them. Who doesn't? But I feel sometimes what the impression I've got from other people when I've been speaking or been opening up this conversation, there's been yeah, but it's just social media, isn't it? Like, it's just TikTok. It's just this. It's not like it's a prestigious TV show on the BBC, which is this funding. And I'm like, yeah, but I get 50 million views on a month filming myself in my bedroom on my own phone. So, and I'm still reaching an audience. Am I being paid for it? No. So maybe that's where TVs and TV shows are doing a little bit better. But I do want to impress that it's a big audience and people want to hear about your research. Like, you might think it's niche, like Neanderthals eating crabs in Portugal is really, really niche, but people, it blew up. It got so many views. People were like, wow, really? I eat crabs. I actually posted it because at the time, my TikTok was full of seafood crab boils. If you've ever seen them, all the Louisiana crab, and now intimately know how to make a Louisiana crab boil because it was all I saw for 6 months. So when the article came up, I went, oh, the people who make the people in Louisiana who are making crab boils, they'll be able to connect to them because they eat crabs. And so I was like, that the style of video I made was like a conversation. And Neanderthal being like, oh my God, I eat crabs. And then someone in the modern day swapping a clip and being like, I also eat crabs. How do you eat yours? And like conversation. And I think it humanizes the past. It helps create those connections, because I think that is the job of archaeologists, is to make the past real. We're storytellers ultimately. Like, yes, we're science, maybe it's a bit too arty. People want to be like, no, we're scientists, we've got that tension. But I think the beauty of archaeology is, yes, you can be a scientist in a lab studying isotopes, but you're telling a story, you're bringing someone back to life. And that's such an incredible privilege to be able to share that. And I don't want you to think, oh, my content's too niche. I thought Southeast Arabia was too niche. People love hearing about tax evasion using camels, is all I'm saying. But even if it's people, if you are creative, if you have fun, if you play, if you stretch your, tentacles a little bit, you might find new ways of engaging an audience. And I hope that that's something we all want to be doing. I'm not saying you're not fun. I'm saying maybe at times I've also not being fun. And I'm not saying, right, now all install TikTok and start filming yourself crying. We're gonna have crying workshops and do it. Because there's so many different ways of creating content that is engaging. You look at someone like History Gossip, and her content it's wildly different to mine, but Katie's really lovely. But she has created her own style and her own niche. And when you're on social media, you look at what other people are doing, like, oh, that works for them, or that worked for me. And I looked at hers and I went, Steph, that is not working for you. Like, that is just like, Katie does it so well, History Gossip. If you're not following her, definitely do. It's hilarious, her history content. But it just wouldn't work for me. It would be completely inauthentic if I did. I'd probably be there like, or like trying to read off a script. So if you do ever want to go into social media, this is something you want to explore, it should be something ultimately you enjoy doing, because it's a thankless job. It's absolutely thankless. You're like, I'm not being paid for this. I'm doing this for the fun of it. And that's the way I look at it, that I would do this regardless if I had an audience or not, because I get to be creative, I get to have fun. And it's helped me, honestly, with my PhD, because with TikTok being 15 seconds, you can only focus on one point, one topic. So you have to be selective. And that's very useful doing a PhD when you have to go through so many readings and you're like, what's the actual point of this article? It's kind of taught me those skills. And I'm often looking for whatever I choose to do, what other skills am I learning at the same time? So even before TikTok, I'd had an Instagram, which I tried doing a travel blog, it didn't work out, but I wanted to learn photography. I want to learn how to take pictures of objects close up. So I was for a hot minute during lockdown in Australia, a food influencer. So I learned how to take good photos and style photos of things close up. You might be like, food influencing on TikTok, how does that relate to archaeology? I think it's helped me. It's made me more confident with photography. So, I mean, if it helps you, it helps. And ultimately, I do love archaeology. I love archaeology, a little too much sometimes, but I want to share that passion. And I think we shouldn't be afraid to show that we're hopefully all a little nerdy about our topics, and we all have a passion, we all have that desire and love, because that is what people in the public who don't yet know about your research but want to and don't realize yet, they will connect to that passion. How many times do you talk to someone and you're like, wow, I don't know anything about it, but my golly, I want to hear more about the psychology of reading. I met a girl doing that and I was fascinated. I was like, tell me everything. And I think digital platforms provide so many opportunities. I didn't realize this when I started. It's kind of great. There wasn't an archaeology talk. There wasn't a history talk when I started. I remember distinctly using hashtag archaeology talk for the first time. Well, I used hashtag archaeology TikTok because I didn't like the sound of archaeology talk. And I was like, history talk's already got one. I was like, archaeology should have a hashtag. And there's so many possibilities in this space that I think can open it up to humanize not only ourselves, our research, but the past, and just make the public aware of what we're doing, and hopefully fight Graham Hancock. Oh, did I say that out loud? Whoops, don't sick the people who are watching, but yeah. And this is my contact info. If you want to get in contact and chat more, I'm always happy to talk. And thanks.